like the fireball effect. That's great.
Explosion at the end. Oh, that always cracks me up. That's only the second time I think I've done that intro because I figured out how to do it.
Great.
But so whatever. Oh my God.
Well, we had a radio spot done for our Dragon Days Festival in Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
And we wanted a dragon roar, but it came out to be sort of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. We're just like, oh well, we'll just go with it.
Yeah, whatever works, huh?
Yeah.
Close enough. Not really, but close enough. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Thursday night special guest live stream. With for the DM and friends, we are here, and I'm super excited to have the one and only Paul Stormberg with us tonight. So you guys, everybody in the background, give a welcoming clap for Paul here. Thanks for coming on, bro. Appreciate it.
I am really pleased to come on. You know, it's been a while since we've seen each other because it had been a while since you've been at GaryCon, right? And
2019.
Seeing you at EggCon was great. So
yeah. You know, I've been meaning to ask, to reach out and ask and say, hey, you want to come on? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see you at at EggCon, and I'm going to play in some chainmail. Perfect opportunity to say, hey, what's up, Paul? Do you want to come on? So it kind of all really worked out. By the way, it was a lot of fun. I think I played in Greg Guerin was there.
Yeah.
Mike Hunt was there also, and you were obviously, and you were running a Battle of 100. I think is what's it's titled. Chainmail game in the sandbox. Legends of Wargaming, like you do it countless. You've probably done it a million times. I don't know about this particular scenario, but man, so much fun.
Well, it's, Chainmail's a fantastic game. There's a lot of desire to play the newest and best version of any war game, but there's still a lot of war games out there that are just really great fun to play. Chainmail is one of them. It's fast, it's fun. If you get into collecting the Elastilin figures, the 40 millimeter figures that Gary imported, that Gary got from hobby stores around the United States, but were imported from Germany. They came pre-painted. They're all gorgeous. You've got Turks, you've got Mongols, you've got Vikings, you've got Romans. You've got Normans, and you've got the whole lineup for playing chainmail, and they work perfectly with the game, and they look great on a sand table because, the sand table is so realistic when you shape it up for a good war game, like you guys did for the Battle of the 100. So
yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was Greg did a nice job of staying in cover for a while and bringing me out.
yeah.
And I got a bunch of pictures of it. Maybe I'll bring some up tonight. But
that's the point of the game. Is it gives you the whole Battle of the 100 is basically to introduce people to the concept of chainmail, playing on a sand table, and just basically kind of learning the ropes on how the system works for the game. And it allows you to be a commander of your own little army. So. And you did great. Everybody did great.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have it back here. You use 3rd edition chainmail, right? That's what
yes, correct.
Your go-to. Let me see if I have a copy.
Although it's not too different from 1st edition as far as what we played.
This bad boy right here, I think. And you know what, man?
You're not taking it out of the shrink wrap, are you?
No, not the shrink wrap. Just a little backboard.
That's Tenkar's show where you open up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did you see him do that? he was
no,
happy with
I couldn't bear to watch. So I didn't.
Oh my God. He had a good old time. Let me go to the comments real quick. I will say, guys, thank you guys for all jumping on here. Do me a favor, if you have any questions for Paul, this is literally the time and place. I will try to keep an eye on the chat. Paul, if you see something that comes up, definitely, slap me through and I missed it, say, hey, you missed this comment. But you guys definitely ask Paul anything you want. I'm sure, within reason you'll answer. And let's go to the comments, see who's here. So you have Kit Case, you are here. Valimar Cleaver, Frugally, Matthew Sherman, what's up? Failed Death Save, Freezer, Drag, DM RX, how you doing? Inner City Game Design, that's Chris Clark. Let me see who else we got. Angelo on someone. Let me see who we got. Blair Blur's here. Okay.
Wait, that was Chris Clark. Chris Clark always comes up. Chris Clark has a sucker trick for everybody. He tells you how good you're looking all the time. Everybody's Chris Clark. He says, "Man, you're looking great, buddy. Did you lose weight? You've been working out."
He did say, I remember him saying that at the con too. By the way, how was Gary? I keep saying Gary. How was EggCon for you?
Yeah, EggCon was great. Heidi and Eric have been very supportive of the gygax Memorial, which I'm the president of, and they've come up to Dragon Days, our big festival that we have in October every year, and they're so great at supporting us. So it was my absolute pleasure to come up there and bring up the sand table and run Heidi's dad's chainmail games and original D&D and AD&D, and just really, kind of celebrate Gary's legacy by running the games he created and he loved to play. So,
yeah,
because Gary, if you took Gary to a game convention like Gary Con or Gen Con or well, you couldn't take him to Gary Con, but if you took him to Gen Con, if you asked him, hey, do you want to go play D&D as a player, or do you want to run a D&D game, or do you want to play in a World War II armor game?
Yeah,
he would hands down want to do war games, because that was his first true love, and that's why I really do the Legends of Wargaming stuff, to kind of recognize that love for wargaming that Gary had and bring it to conventions that might not otherwise have any wargaming at all.
Yeah. Dreg gives me a question. Okay, I will answer this question. He says, for the host, I guess that's me, how stoked are you to have Paul Stormberg on right now? He memorialized the memorialization of the industry around D&D. He's done the impossible. I'm pretty stoked. Yeah. So, nice. Paul, thank you so much for being on. It's funny, we've been kind of going back and forth on Facebook, and I don't know if a lot of you guys have met Paul or ever talked to him in person, but this dude is a wealth of information. Like it's actually like my mind does this. Like the first hour and a half that I would say that when I came over to the Legends of Wargaming, started talking to you, you gave me the grand tour, like a museum type tour of all these different models of replicas of let's see if I have the monster. I don't have the monster manual here with me, but you were opening up pages of the monster manual. Let me grab mine.
I got it.
Gosh, what did I do with it? It's somewhere.
Okay, I got one.
Yeah, you showed me the replica of the dragon. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like literally, and just explaining and giving a huge explanation of how it came about and why he had short legs and the way that the wings were made, and just mind blowing. But
and that's a credit to Gary. I mean, when the fantasy elements of chainmail were being added, Gary wanted there to be a dragon, but you couldn't go to the store and get a dragon. There were no dragon miniatures. You could get a dragoon. Napoleonic dragon, but you could not find dragons. So Gary went down to the local dime store in Lake Geneva, Schultz Brothers Dime Store, found himself a stegosaurus in a pack of prehistoric animals, they called it. And cut the tail spikes off, stuck them on either side of the creature's head, put some auto body out putty on its head to make it a little bigger, sharpened up its back spikes, cut out some cardboard from a cereal box, and then painted the whole thing green, or whole thing red, and then turned it over and put some sprinkles on the bottom, some glitter on the bottom to make it look like gems on the bottom. And that's why this dragon looks like it does on the cover, because it's literally a stegosaurus that's been kit bashed to be the first dragon of the fantasy chainmail game.
God, I wish I would have taken a better picture. I'm looking at the pictures I took. Oh, actually, here we go. This might be a really good one right here. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the stegosaurus, and that's why the dragon has such dumpy little legs. because it's a stegosaurus, right? And that's why it has spikes on either side of its head. And then if you look at Sutherland's drawing on the inside, if you look at his dragon drawing on the inside, if you come back to my shot here, if you can look at that, his drawing on the inside there, right there, right down here, right? You see, it's kind of got a snake. Whoops, it's kind of got a snake-like head, right? It's got a snake.
Yeah, a little different. Yeah.
A little longer body, so it doesn't look like it doesn't have horns on the side of its head for sure.
Yeah,
and that's because I was friends with Dave Sutherland for a while and corresponded with him a lot, and he told me the story about his painting of this. And he said Gary was very controlling and specific about how this was done. And so Gary was providing him models that he had to paint on the cover. So you'll see the troll down here and the owl bear. Those were things that Gary very specifically wanted painted on here. And so when Dave had the chance to recover this painting, this whole Monster Manual painting cover, when he had the chance to rescue that from a pile of art that was being thrown away at TSR, he threw it back on the pile because he didn't like that one because Gary was so specific about how it was produced.
Yeah. Wow.
But anyway.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing it because you have all the replicas. You have all the. I mean, you were pulling out and showing me the. This was, this is what the trolls look like. You know what I mean? Like, it was so cool. So
right, and
I recommend wherever you can, if you can, go see Paul where he's going to be at Legends of Wargaming, and he's going to have all this cool stuff, and the history is right there. But we're going to talk about a lot of this tonight too. But I just had a great time at AidCon, just
it was
seeing
great.
all the stuff and hanging out and talking. So, and here we are.
Here we are.
Well, and you guys, like I said, you guys, by the way, thank you guys for all being here. And I will encourage everyone, please ask questions, and we'll stop if we can and answer some questions. I do have one from Matt Sherman here, and I love this question. And being the huge Greyhawk nerd that I am, knowing that you are too, I got to ask this question. Okay, before we get into all the stuff we had planned.
Do the Brady Bunch.
What's that?
You point at me, I'll look down at you, and I'll point at you.
There we go. Yeah.
No, you got to look up, just like the Brady Bunch. Yeah, there you go. Now you got it.
All right.
All right.
Matt Sherwin, who's a huge Greyhawk lover, he says, I would love to hear the story about the Earth Journal 12 interview. Any elemental god insights?
Oh, well, I think we're going to do a whole show on the Temple of Elemental Evil.
We are. I think we were going to do a whole show dedicated on Greyhawk. Not tonight.
The reason for that is partly that interview, and partly because I've seen Gary's original Temple of Elemental Evil manuscript. Because of my role with the Collector's Trove and helping to curate the collection, I've seen the entire manuscript, and I've learned a lot from the original character sheets that were part of the original campaign maps, in addition to the published materials. And basically, there's a lot more to the story, and it really ties with the Temple of Elemental Evil. But
Yeah.
the Elder Elemental God was conceived of by Gary all the way back in 1977. And so it wasn't until 1978 that you start seeing the first inklings of it in the Giant series. But I don't want to spoil that whole show because it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. Well,
the Temple of
you
Elemental
guys-
Evil, the Temple of Elemental Evil, and the Elder Elemental God. That part of Greyhawk, it's its own story, and it's pretty incredible. It's a great campaign.
And I will say, you guys, for sure, Paul has agreed that we're going to come back and do a full Temple of Elemental Evil Greyhawk show. We haven't scheduled it yet. We're gonna let's figure out how tonight goes first, but definitely we're gonna come back and do a full show dedicated on that. Because I'll tell you what, I want. This is what I was trying to get to is when you meet Paul, when you sit with him, and Paul is so thorough. I said, so what should we talk about? This is kind of some of my ideas. Well, he sent me about 5, 6, 7 bullet points about in a Facebook message. And I'm like, wow, let's do it. Let's do all of it. So anyway, so I did want to kind of, we kind of talked about where to start here. And, the first bullet point that I really wanted to kind of get into his biography and, like early gaming. You did mention your meeting with Gary. This is why we're here. You know what I mean? This is really why we're here. It is because of Gary that we're all here. We're all talking about the game that we love that he created. Whoever you want to talk, co-created, whatever. It's all kind of D&D. All came from this area. This is what we're talking about here, and and then get in a little bit to collecting. I'm kind of a quasi, I don't know, low-level collector myself, but you have more of a kind of a grasp on that too. So I'd love to talk about kind of where you started in gaming, where your meeting with Gary, and kind of what's your oomph is that led you to where you're at today.
Sure. Well, so I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and my younger brother got a Moldvay basic set for his birthday on July 16th of 1981. And my brother took one look at it and said, "This looks complicated. Here, Paul, you're good at reading things. You figure out how to play it." And then everybody went outside and played. And then about 15 minutes later came out and I said, "I know how to play it." In fact, I did not know how to play it. but that didn't stop us anyway. And so from there, our group played all the way through the end of high school to 1985. And then we kind of broke up and everybody kind of went their own way. And, I played off and on for years, but nothing like those original years. Started with Moldvay Basic, and then we met some older high school kids who were playing Holmes Basic. And that was a little different for us. But we started to kind of get the idea that there was an advanced game. And then I picked up a copy of the Player's Handbook. And then I went to get a Dungeon Master's Guide. But the Player's Handbook was $12, which I could afford on my Paperboy income. And then my brother Don had to pitch in $3 the next month to buy the Dungeon Master's Guide. And so because he had pitched in $3 and I had pitched in $12, my brother wrote in huge marker across the front flyleaf, "Don Stormberg." I was like, "What's the deal? I paid for more of this than you did."
Wow. That's funny because they were $12 and $15. You're right.
Yeah. And so, I could afford the one, but I couldn't get the other one. But when I brought that to my game master, the early days, like we couldn't figure out how to do percentiles in Moldvay. And you know, we were kind of looking back and forth in the rules, trying to figure out how to do percentiles. So my best friend's dad was an accountant, and he had a lot of actuarial experience, and he was really good with statistics and numbers. And so we asked him to solve this problem for us. And so he took the books and went through about a pack of filterless Camels, smoking them down to his fingers, looking at the books. And then he comes back to us with his cigarette gnarled voice and says, well, there's a couple ways you could do this. And then he described how we could do it with a D20, how we could do it with 2 D10s. And then he said, there's even ways you can do it with 6-sided dice, and proceeded to explain how you could get a 1 to 100 percentile of D6s. And it was something to the effect of, if you roll a D6, and if it's 1 to 3, then your range is 50.
Yeah, that makes sense.
50. And then you roll it again and find out if your range is 1 to 25. And then you roll the dice again and multiply one die by the other to get a number, ignoring 6s, to get a number between 1 and 25. We were like, no, we'll use the 10-sided dice. That's easy enough. But it was interesting to have him helping us, because you know, he was looking at it at a purely statistical, mathematical way. But so after our group played for that long, you know, everybody played here and there in college, but we never really got back together until I got married in 1993, and all my buddies were at a prenuptial dinner, and we used to talk about how we play all weekend long. You know, we'd start on Saturday morning and we'd play until Sunday morning, 6 a.m. And then my dad would get us all up for church. And we would drag our butts and sit in the pew and try to stay awake.
Yeah, wow.
But they said, man, we used to love playing that game. We should start it up again. So as soon as I got back from my honeymoon, we picked it up again. I didn't have many of my original books, having moved for college and the military. I was in the Army as a combat medic for about 5 years, 6 years, 8 years actually, and so I didn't have a lot of my stuff. The one time I did play in the military, a friend of mine had my bunkmate had found a Dungeon Master's Guide, AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, sitting in a local bookshop near base. He brought it in. He said, hey, Stormberg, you play D&D, right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, why don't you run a game for us? And I was like, oh, wow. All right. And so all I had was the DMG. And he said, run a game for us. And then pretty soon he said, I've got this guy and this guy playing. And it sounded like there's going to be about 5 guys. And then later in the afternoon, as I was kind of going over my notes and trying to make up a dungeon, our platoon sergeant came in. And, you know, this guy's was a sergeant and had fought in Panama, and, you know, was a pretty experienced Army guy. And he's like, well, you know, you going to run this tonight? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, I'd like to play. And I was like, all right, good, fine. You know, I was just a buck private at the time. So, and then our platoon leader, who was a staff sergeant, and he was special forces.
Oh, wow.
And he comes up to me and he goes, hey, you're going to run a game for us tonight. You can use my leadership office. I'm like, oh my God, I got all these guys who are going to be at this. And, you know, these are guys that yell at me all day long. And so I show up that evening to run the game, and I come up to the leader's office, and there's a crowd of about 20 people gathered in the hallway outside of the leader's office. And I look in, and the leader's office is just packed with people. And I go, oh, what happened? And they go, well, you're running a game for us. There was over 20 guys ready to play this game. And so I just ran this crazy pell-mell game. I put them in a big hall where they could get attacked from every side, and it was great. But
God, that's so funny. I have a lot of friends that were in the military and played D&D in the military. I mean, that's super awesome.
But that was one of the few times I played until my D&D group came back together in '93. I bought the second edition books, and we played for about a year with the second edition books.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "This isn't right.
Yeah.
This seems wrong," and certain things were just not there. And eventually I was like, why am I doing this? I just want to, everybody just wants to play first edition like we did back in the day. And so we ended up just wholesale going back to first edition. And we've been playing every year since then. We meet every Tuesday night and play for 4 hours. And it's my same group of high school buddies, my brother's buddies, and a few new people we've picked up along the way.
There's there's a question here from John Miller Philosophy. He says, this is an awesome story. How did Paul run a game without the player's handbook, rules for spells, weapons, and classes are necessary? How did you do that?
They were all first level.
Great answer.
There was not too much detail required when they were all first level. So
it's funny. I've ran games too where I didn't have the books, and you kind of stick with the common things you remember, and that you have stored up here that you don't have to, or you make it up.
So it was easy enough to run it. I mean, you have all the combat tables, saving throws, turning undead. The list of spells was about the only thing that I didn't have, but first level magic user, not too much choice. So I just suppose just pick whatever you want, So it worked out. So, but that was the only time I ever played in the military, the whole time.
Yeah.
And I ran a game for 23 people or something like that.
Jeez, man, what an experience. You hit on something which is funny, because I have a similar story too, where we all kind of jumped on. There's actually been a couple versions, editions that I've, I started in first edition too, right? I started actually not knowing, and we made it up, and then we got the first edition books. I think it was my buddy who had Holmes copy, and then we just played it without anything, and then we bought the first edition books, and I've been stuck on that ever since. But I know there was a period when 2E came out, we switched over to that really quick, and then went back to first. And then there was a period where later on we were in third, and we were like, oh no, let's go back to first. And then there was 4E was given a try and went back to first. What do you think that is? Because that's a common thread that I hear from a lot of people. And including myself, and I don't know what I have a couple ideas why, and it really goes down to nostalgia. It goes down to the artwork. It goes down to the smell of the books for me. It goes down to all those things. I don't know really what one piece of data is that brought me back every time to first edition. But what is your take on that?
Well, we started with Mold Bay, as I said. And and then we had those older high school kids bring this home set, and it was like, I don't know, it was like reading a modern textbook and then getting a medieval book on alchemy with pictures of demons, right? And so for us it was like, wow, this game is fun, but wow, this is interesting. This seems darker. This seems to be more mysterious. Everything's not laid out quite as cleanly, right? And it made us think that there was something else out there. And then, man, when we got the AD&D books, we were like, that's like going, back to the source material. And it was, it had enough crunch. It had the great art. I mean, the art looked like woodcuts. Right, it looked like woodcut etchings that had been printed by a printing press in the 1600s. Right, exactly. And that's
the first image that you see besides the cover.
That really draws
guy
you in.
Sitting there smoking, making smoke rings on the. Yeah, it's so crazy.
And then we were teenagers, right? And so there were comics in there. There were cartoons in there that were funny, right? That made fun of the game too. And that was all right. You know, that they broke the third window, so to say, you know, they broke the third window. Yeah. The third wall. Sorry. Yeah. You know, I own that painting.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The Paladin in Hell.
Yeah. So that's the next part of the story. So here we go.
Yeah.
So,
Kit Case 1 says, is Holmes Blue Book considered part of first edition? I'd love to hear your answer on this. I know I have an answer for this question, but what's your take on? I mean, Holmes was made.
It was made to be a transition.
Yeah.
You know, it was made to be a transition because Gary knew AD&D was coming in '77, and he was starting to add the concepts he was already thinking of for D&D. And so you go from the 3-point alignment, which I know you just did a show on, to the 5-point alignment. And he's well on his way to the 9-point alignment system. So I think that Holmes may have tailored it more to be like OD&D, but Gary went in and edited it and positioned it to be a stepping stone to AD&D, which is totally was for us.
Yeah. I mean, you got the level 1, 2, and 3. It's kind of got the feel of AD&D. It's prepping you, and you hit third level. I want more.
Yeah.
Boom. Now I'm in AD&D.
You know, the art goes backwards again. You know, it's like discovering an ancient tome of forbidden knowledge. So yeah, it's good stuff, and I think that's why Holmes, you know, for me, and of course there was nothing else after it. You know, and so, well, what do we do now? You know, now that we've learned about all these alignment systems and this sort of stuff, you know, this sort of darker version of the game, what's next? And AD&D was certainly it for us.
Yeah. I got a question here from Demon Dogs, and I'm bringing this up. I don't know if this jumps up ahead of us, but this is probably a great time for you. He says, question for you when you get to Collector's Trove. Do you want to answer this now, or you want to hold off? I can just pin this.
There's a question about the Monster Manual that just popped up too. So
yeah, let's see. Do you want to answer this question real quick?
Yeah, I'll answer the Collector's Trove question first.
Okay. Yeah, so he says, is there a piece of original art you sold that you wish you could have kept for yourself?
You know, yes. This one behind me.
Ah, look at that.
Yeah, and I sold the cover. Sold the cover art for Dragon Magazine number 31, I believe it was, which was one of the ones Gary had hanging on his wall. That was sad to see go. I had some monster card art, which I liked. You know, the old monster cards.
Yeah.
They were beautiful little full color acrylic paintings about yay big. And I let go of the red dragon. I had the red dragon. And what was the other one? I had the red dragon and I had a hill giant. And I sold those. But then my daughters, I also had the sprite or I think it was a sprite or a pixie. No, it was a sylph. Sorry. I had one of a sylph, and it was this beautiful little fairy picture, and my daughters wouldn't let me sell it. So I still have that one. I still have that. And I have the Paladin in Hell piece, which, you know, that I'd never part with that.
Yeah, that's amazing too. That's one of the most iconic pictures in the Player's Handbook, I think, of all time. Paladin in Hell.
I had a chance. For this. Remember, I told you that Dave Sutherland had thrown this piece of art back on the pile.
Yeah.
It ended up in someone else's hands, and they sold it on eBay, and it sold for $4,000.
Wow.
But at the time, I had just bought this one, and I didn't have any money left to buy it. And
Yeah.
so I had to let it go. So that was a big regret. But
Wow.
yeah. But
Um,
so when I bought, uh, so I get I'm getting back into playing first edition, and so there's an alt rec.games marketplace, right? The alt collectors marketplace, the ACM, which is now a collector site, the ACM. But the ACM was a place where people would sell stuff, and there were no pictures. You would just say, "Hey, I've got a monster manual from 1977. It's got rough corners. Starting bid $5," and people would bid on it, never seeing it, only having a description of it. And I started collecting by buying stuff from this ACM, this alt collectors marketplace, buying role playing game stuff, and uh, and eventually I migrated to eBay. And when the Paladin in Hell piece of art came up, the original illustration from the player's handbook, which you just showed,
yeah.
I was thinking it was going to go for thousands and thousands of dollars. So I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, honey, this is a really important piece of art for me, and I think if I take a little money out of our mortgage and I work a little extra, I can make enough money to pay this off in about 2 years."
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Well, if it means that much to you, go for it." Yeah. And so I was able to bid $6,000. That was the maximum amount of money I had at the time. This was about 2004. That was about the maximum amount of money I had at the time. And I bid on it and ended on Sunday night. And then I refused to look at the auction until Monday morning. And then I covered my screen with my hand and slowly scrolled through, and it said, "You won!" I was like,
Oh my God.
I can't believe I won. But then I was terrified. Oh my God, it was probably $6,000. It sold for $1,100. That
Oh
was
my God.
it. And so I thought it was just an absolute steal of the lifetime, right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to get that little for it.
No. I think that would go for original art. I think that would go for a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to pay a lot more for it for sure.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, as I collect stuff and I'm doing this, I'm talking to Dave Sutherland because I asked the guy who sold it. I said, "Hey, can I talk to Dave Sutherland about this piece? I'd like to know more." And so Dave Sutherland calls me up at my house and we start talking. He lived in Nebraska for a while in the same apartment complex that my parents and I lived in when I was just in the middle of college. And so Dave said, "Gosh, Paul, you know a lot about this stuff. I got a whole bunch of art from my days back at TSR. I was wondering if you would want to sell this stuff for me because I'm dying of liver disease and I'd like to leave a trust for my daughter who's getting married next year."
Yeah.
And so he gives, I pick up from his sister's house, who is right behind my kid's pediatrician house here, pediatrician's building here in Omaha. I go over to his sister Trudy's house, and she has all of this art from Dave from TSR, and like the first monster manual that came off the printer and went straight to his hands, the first Dungeon Master's Guide, because Dave was the guy who would go to the printer and check out the proofs and check out the first prints that came off the print to make sure that they were acceptable. And he had all of those that had just come right off the printer. And so I ended up selling that stuff in 2004 for about $33,000. Just kind of not a real great collection of stuff. Like a lot of his original art got thrown away in that pile that I was talking about, right? And and then that led one thing to another. And then Steve Marsh, who was a pen pal of Gary's, basically came up with the moral alignment axis on the alignment chart. Speaking of alignment again, right?
Yeah. By the way, guys, I have an arc right now where I'm doing the alignment. A little shameless plug. So check out those videos.
Yeah. And so that's an interesting part of the whole alignment story, because Steve Marsh was going back and forth with Gary because it was just law, chaos, and neutrality, right?
Yeah.
And Steve said, you keep saying evil here, and you keep saying good here. He says, what you've got seems like it's an ethical axis for alignment.
Yeah.
What you need is a moral axis for alignment. And that's when Gary creates the 5-point system, where you then get good and evil blended into the alignment system.
That's crazy.
And Steve is also responsible for explaining the concept of the inner planes to Gary. Gary was working in the mid-70s on a lot of models for the planes, and Steve says, well, I like to think of the planes like a box of copier paper in a letter to Gary. So you've got the box. The top is the positive elemental plane. The bottom is the negative elemental plane. The sides are the elemental planes, right? The inside, the air inside, is the ethereal plane, and all the pieces of paper inside are the different prime material planes. And that's how Steve explained the concept of the inner planes to Gary Gygax. Yep.
Wow.
And so, because Gary was trying to come up with a 3-dimensional version of what the planes look like, because his version was what you just showed. It was 2-dimensional, right? And Steve explained it to Gary as this multi-dimensional. He's also the one who suggested the mystic, which is a mental powers creature. And that's where we get the beginnings of psionics, but psionics ultimately were fully devised by Tim Cass.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah, I mean.
So Steve Marsh says he's got a box of stuff, and he said, I'm going to put it out on the curb for the recyclers to come pick up. Would anybody be interested in this stuff? And I knew he was a pen pal of Gary, but nobody else really knew what his influence level was, that he had that level of influence. And so my friend Alan Grohe says, oh, you should talk to Paul Stormberg. He ran some auctions for Dave Sutherland. He should run auctions for you too. And then next it was Ernie, and then it was Rob Kuntz, and then it was Darlene and Zeb Cook. And I started getting all of these people who worked for TSR giving me their collections. Eventually, it was Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax himself that I ended up with their collections as well for auctioning them off.
Yeah, and that's kind of the origins of the collector's
trove, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, I mean, I can't remember when it's. I cannot put a finger on when you started this, because it's, for me, it's like it's been there forever. But I mean, when was the first year of you doing this that you kind of?
December of 1999 is when I officially called my collector's trove, and those were all email auctions. I had a list of about 300 people that I'd send an email to and said, here's the newest batch of stuff that I have for you guys. And then everybody would email me their bids, and there were no pictures. I had to describe everything, visually, so people knew what they looked like. And so, I did that for a couple years while working as an archaeologist for the National Park Service. But it wasn't until like the late 2000s that I started making enough money doing it to have that be my full-time gig.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good segue into the next question here. Joe Kaufman does say, don't let me interrupt, which you guys, don't worry about it. Please ask your questions. I do have a couple pinned questions that I'll get back to, but I think this is a good place to ask this. He says, don't let me interrupt. but I'm interested in where the Gygax Memorial is in becoming a reality. You know, the statue and gaming table concept is too cool. You want to talk a little bit about that? I'm sure you do.
Well, yeah, well, when in 2007, I had come up for a Lake Geneva gaming convention. I went to Gary's front porch party, where his wife Gail would make a whole bunch of food. Gamers would come over. They'd all sit around on Gary's porch, eat food the night before the convention, which was put on by Troll Lords, called the Lake Geneva Gaming Convention, 2005, 2006, 2007, and I think they had one posthumous one in 2008. But sitting there with Gary on his porch, he kind of told me that, he said, listen, Paul, I don't have anything to leave my wife and child, to support my wife and child. I don't have investments. I don't have property. I don't have a life insurance policy. I gave Gail the collection of all my ephemera, my art, my manuscripts, everything. And he said, if she chooses you to be the auctioneer for all this stuff and chooses you to help her manage all this stuff, you have to make her as much money as possible.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. But ultimately, he said, it's up to her because it's her property. And I said, fine. So eventually, Gail brings me on, and I run a couple of auctions to help support Gail as Gary wanted to. You know, we kind of nibble around the edges, nothing super important, shrink wrap copies he got as comp copies, that sort of thing. But I did that for a while, and then eventually she had me be a sort of expert consultant on Gary's intellectual property, because I knew everything about the history of the game. And so I was able to say who the co-author was for Dunkirk, and who owned the rights to Dunkirk, and when Dunkirk was published, and who is the last copyright holder of Dunkirk, and that sort of thing, right? And so when she started working with Tom DeSanto in 2016 and through 2018, I started helping her with that. Well, eventually they had a falling out, and by 2019, she had been working on the memorial the whole time. I wasn't any part of the memorial. I didn't have anything to do with the memorial. I just was totally on the sidelines. But in July of 2019, she asked if I would come on as the vice president and help get the project back on track, because the city of Lake Geneva did not want a statue to Gary. And that's just all there was to it. Gail had tried from 2009 to 2012. They eventually gave her land that was basically federally protected wetlands. That's what they gave her to put Gary's memorial in. And well, we couldn't put the memorial in there because it would just sink in there. And this area is also flooded every year, up to 8 to 10 feet of flooding. So if we put any memorial in there, it'd be underwater, washed away, eroded away, and fall over. And so she brings me in July of 2019, and I immediately decide I'm going to get this done right away. I'm going to really be gung-ho about it. I started meeting with the city. I decided right away that the memorial needed to be redesigned. Gail's sister said, a gaming table would be great. And that's when the concept of the gaming table came into play. I suggested we put the first level of Gary's Greyhawk Castle on there in bronze as a scaled map that people could play with miniatures on. And then that we have awesome. That we have Gary sitting on a throne. His hand pointed down to the table, gesturing to the map, and that we would have benches on either side. The players could gather around. The game master would sit right next to Gary, and the game master would roll his dice off of Gary's hand onto the table. And so Gary helped the game master run his game or her game. And so forever now, if we get this memorial built, players will forever be able to sit down and play a game of D&D with Gary in spirit at this memorial. And that
Yeah.
was kind of the idea, to create a mecca, a pilgrimage for them to come to, so that they could roll their dice off of Gary's hand, play on the table. We're going to upload his original key from 1973. This is the very first dungeon level he ever drew, and ran Elisa and Ernie through back in April of 1973.
Yeah.
And we're going to upload his original key that those kids played in that original game, so that everybody can play that original game. But then we're going to encourage game masters to upload their own keys for the dungeon, so they can run a new adventure every year on that same map.
Wow.
Where
Yeah, no, that's a really, I mean, that's an awesome idea. That, to be honest with you, that's the first time I've heard you verbalize that too. And that's super, that's crazy. I mean, that's kind of mind blowing. It's awesome. Where did the city council end up deciding that table is gonna, when it goes to fruition?
Well, so when we came up with the table concept,
on the map here, I guess. I don't know if anybody's seen it. You probably watched out.
Kind of glossy, but
yeah.
So if anybody comes into Lake Geneva from the west on Main Street or Highway 50 there, and you see the Welcome to Lake Geneva sign,
yeah,
with the cobblestones, as you come in down that hill and into Lake Geneva, and you see that, the first thing you're going to see is the sign, Welcome to Lake Geneva, and right next to that, you're going to see Gary's Memorial.
Wow.
Because this is the home of the creator of Dungeons & Dragons, co-creator.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the first thing you're going to see when you come into the city from the west, is Gary Gygax and his Dungeons & Dragons gaming table. So the original design, so do you know the Bronze Fonz?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course.
That guy was Gary's widow, Gail's. That was her original consultant for the design. And she brought Larry Elmore in to do the concept art for it. But it was kind of Gary looking down from a castle parapet and looking down like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the city council took one look at that and thought, I don't think we want that on our beachfront. But to say, how about a picnic table? Because that's about the size of it. It's a picnic table, right?
Sure.
It'll look like a guy sitting at a picnic table. That's what it'll look like. It won't be some big ostentatious statue. There won't be a huge dragon rearing up, although that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But it's something
maybe
much
the dragon
more
by the
yeah.
I was gonna say maybe the dragon by the library or something overlooking it. Yeah.
But the message I still got from the city, Angelo, was we don't want a statue to Gary.
Yeah.
Because they didn't appreciate what Gary's accomplishments, what his legacy means to the rest of the world. They know he's the guy who invented that funny game that started the Satanic Panic. That's the end of their information on it. And you got to remember, this is a city for Chicago elites. This is where the Schwinns lived in their mansion, where the Wards,
there's a lot of history
and the Wrigleys lived. And these were the titans of industry that had their mansions here. And here's this little weird cobbler who makes a game that's kind of weird and becomes controversial and makes him a millionaire overnight, but it's nothing special to them. And so you have all these titans of industry. Why would we make a statue to this weird little guy when we should be making a statue to the Schwinns or the Wrigleys or, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I went to the city council and the parks board, and I went there month after month after month with this new design. And here was my pitch. I said to them, in human history, in 7 millennia of game design, humans have only come up with 6 types of tabletop games. You've got dice, you've got cards, you've got board games, miniatures games, tile games like Mahjong, dominoes. You got pen and paper games like tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe is 5,000 years old. But then it takes another millennia, actually another 1,200 years, before a seventh type of tabletop game is created. And that's the role-playing game. And it's a guy who did it in our lifetime in the United States of America, in the state of Wisconsin, in this little tiny town of Lake Geneva at 330 Center Street.
Yeah.
And that's what started getting them thinking, maybe this is more important. I said, we don't know who created chess. We don't know who created dice. The Babylonians, that's about as good as we can get. But we know the name of the guys who created this. And one of them wrote it and published it right there in Lake Geneva. And eventually the city council was like, oh, you mean like if chess was invented in Lake Geneva, we would have a park in the shape of a chessboard with 10-foot tall stone.
Yeah, jeez.
Right?
Yeah.
It would be huge.
Yeah.
And so I did modeling based on GaryCon and based on a series of initiatives. And I started over a 2-year period, a series of initiatives to educate the public about Gary's legacy, his contributions to the city of Lake Geneva, and his contributions to the world. So the first one was we had the mayor declare Gary's birthday, July 27th, Gary Gygax Day in Lake Geneva. That was the first one.
Yeah.
Then Gary used to sit on a park bench on the shore of Lake Geneva and look off across the Geneva Bay at Stone Manor and tell little Robbie Kuntz, the orphan kid that hung out with them, one day, Robbie, I'm going to be a famous fantasy novelist. And I'm going to be living in that mansion publishing fantasy novels. And Gary makes that dream come true in 1985. So we've got that park bench dedicated to Gary. And the little part of land there, we started calling Gygax Park, even though they won't let us rename it. We started calling it Gygax Park.
Wow.
And the next thing we did was we dedicated a section in the library called the Appendix and Alcove. This is a collection of the 100 books that Gary felt inspired the way D&D was created, the way D&D was written.
Yeah.
The sort of Vancian magic system and the Fritz Leiber sort of swords and sorcery.
Yeah.
That all of those elements. And so we dedicated that in the library and installed a throne of reading, a big leather chair that you can sit in and read. And when I came up with that idea, Gail said, you know, Paul, I didn't tell you this, but we had a throne of reading in our house. It was a big Fu Lion Chinese chair carved out of dark wood with red silk. And Gary always referred to it as the throne of reading. So,
yeah.
And then... Yeah, good.
I was going to say, I actually went there this when I was in ACON. It's fascinating. A little, you know, kind of 10 by 10, 20 by maybe 10-foot area. It says, you know, Appendix N on there. All the books are right there in the library. You have the chair. It's just this little
and it overlooks the whole library too.
Whole library.
The balcony overlooks the whole library. It's I couldn't believe they gave us that spot.
It's actually really cool. I have some pictures when I went. I don't know if I have them on this case. You know, they're on my phone. Man, I'll share them with you guys at some point when I pull them up. But yeah, it's actually really awesome, and it's really cool to like look down there and see the Michael Moorcock books and you know, H.P. Lovecraft and like you're saying, Vance, and just all the different Appendix N books that are there. It's really cool. Really cool.
You know, Gary was pen pals with Vance and with Moorcock, and he wrote to all those guys in Leiber and Sprague Camp. He was friends with all those guys, and he started to invite them to write in Dragon Magazine and to attend Gen Con in the early days. And so the next thing we did was, of course, Gary founded Gen Con at Horticultural Hall there in Lake Geneva. So we laid what we called the Founder's Stone, dedicated to Gary's founding of Gen Con on that site. And then the next thing we did was the walking tour map, which you've seen, which you were showing. It shows 40 some odd sites all around Lake Geneva. So if you want to know the building where the first printing of Dungeons and Dragons was created, it's on there. If you want to know where Gary's buddy pretended to be a werewolf and jump out and scare the waitresses on the street, it's on there. That's pretty good. But there's about 44 sites, I think it is, on there that are all the sites historically important. Gary, you can find out where he found the rust monster and the owl bear.
And what's really crazy is all the little spots that you have penned in. You know, if you kind of look at it, and you have the little
like a dungeon
map. If you kind of look around, and you didn't just like write a little, you know, you wrote a little blurb over here. I don't know if you can kind of see it, guys. I'm all backwards here. All this right here. But each of them opens up into a, you know, an essay type explanation of each individual site and how it kind of corresponds to the history of TSR. It's really done very well.
Thank you.
I spent probably about 3 or 4 hours just walking around Lake Geneva following this map. And it was really cool to just kind of stop, read what you have kind of penned in there about it. And, you know, you go over to, you know, 330 Center Street, you go look across the street diagonally and see the other house, and you go to the horticulture hall, you go and, you know, it's really well done. Really, really well.
Yeah, well, and so it not only ties into the history, but it also ties into like specific products. Like chainmail was created here. Greyhawk was created here. Dungeons and Dragons was created here, but Temple of Elemental Evil was played here, you know, and the Giant
really cool.
series was played here. And so those sorts of things, tying in people's favorite part of the hobby, you know, really gets you to connect with those sites around town. And what you just demonstrated is the perfect example. Gary was a nervous driver. He drove, but he didn't like to drive. He was also very poor, so he couldn't afford a car. So when Gary, even when he was working for Fireman's Fund Insurance and Kemper before that, he took the train. He took the Chicago and Northwestern train up to Chicago and then walked to work, and then he walked back to the train, and then he took the train home every day. And so you'll see everything on that site. Gen Con, the first TSR headquarters, his friend's house, everything is within just about an 8-block area because he had to walk everywhere to do anything. So, yeah. So if he was going to have a convention, he couldn't drive to it. He just walked down the street 2 blocks.
Look at who just popped in. Yolanda.
Yeah, Yolanda from 330 Center Street. The Center Street Dungeon. Yolanda has been amazing partner in all this. Matter of fact, we had the dedication for the map there at 330 Center Street, and she was the one who cut the silver ribbon with the sword of gygax.
Oh, dude, that's so awesome.
So she had a lot of fun with that, but she was so great. She's been so great to us. You know, I've had to go up for dozens and dozens and dozens of city council meetings, park board meetings, planning commission meetings, zoning committee, all that stuff, just over and over and over again. And Yolanda has let me stay for free at 330 Center Street so that I don't eat into the costs that we need to, build a memorial. So she's been so great and supportive. And, one of our other things, one of our other initiatives was that we put an interpretive sign in the window of 330 Center Street.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And so we did that whole history piece so that when people come up, they have something. If they don't have the map, like, you would, there's some pictures of Don K. That's the only picture of Don K with Gary that anybody knows about. So that color picture, and do you know whose collection that came out of? Dave Arneson's collection.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's the only picture of Don K and Gary, and it's from 1974. It's from Gen Con 1974, right when D&D is released.
Wow.
Don K would die
wild.
Don K would just die 5 months later. So that was like one of the last pictures of the two of them together.
Wow.
But We also put a replica sand table in the basement, just like the one you played on at EggCon.
Yeah.
And that is now in the basement, right where Gary originally had it before he moved his cobbling equipment down. So people can come there and play chainmail games in the basement, right in the same place where chainmail was created.
Oh my God. I got to do it. I got to do it. Yeah. Yolanda, thank you for being here, and God bless you, and thank you for everything you do, and just your kindness. So that's really, man, it's super awesome. Yeah, and Lydia Stormberg says the birthplace of, look at that. Look who that is. Who is that?
My daughter's plugging me. She's my ringer.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
I said, if
Well,
nobody's on the
welcome.
show, you have to be on it, dear.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Somebody's got to ask you questions.
Yeah.
So the very next thing we did is then we founded Dragon Days Fantasy Festival, which is a citywide festival that takes place the first weekend of October. We have a big fantasy renaissance fair in the park, and then we tie in all of the historical sites like 330 Center Street, the Lake Geneva Public Library, the Geneva Lake Museum. Oh, the Geneva Lake Museum, that's another one. Sonia Ackroyd of the Geneva Lake Museum and the Wizard of Lake Geneva, that was another one of our initiatives.
Wow.
And so people can go there during Dragon Days. They can go to Horticultural Hall where we have gaming, introduction to D&D games, and games for more hardcore gamers who are used to playing AD&D, 5th edition, everything. But every month for 2 years, Angelo, we were on the front page of the paper. Yeah. Gary Gygax Memorial, Gary Gygax dedication ceremony. And by the end of those 2 years, it wasn't even difficult to get the city council to finally vote yes. They voted yes unanimously for this. Do you know what the answer they gave Gail in 2009? No, we're not going to have a memorial. And we're going to write a policy that says no memorial shall ever be created in Lake Geneva. That's the answer they gave her.
Wow.
And so to go from that and to struggle as a bereaved widow and to face that humiliation and beat down month after month after month, year after year, and they finally give her a piece of marshland for the site. And eventually she was just tired and said, just let's, you take it over, Paul. And so that initiative campaign is what turned it around. The new mayor came in, Todd Krause, great supporter of Gail and the memorial and Dragon Days, the festival, and getting everything done. And so we had our Kickstarter in October. We raised, our goal was $150,000 for the stone elements of the table. Mm-hmm. And we reached $215,000. So we far exceeded our goal for the stone elements. We still need several $100,000 for the bronze elements because the bronze, just face it, it's expensive to have someone sculpt something from bronze, especially something so massive. But 50 million people have played this game. 50 million people have played this game. Tens of millions of people have played the games that came out of TSR. 50 million people have played Dungeons and Dragons. But, there's hundreds of millions of people that have read the fantasy fiction that came out of Lake Geneva because of Gary. When they came to Gary with Dragonlance, Harold Johnson was in the room with Brian Bloom and Kevin Bloom, and he brought to them this idea from Margaret Weiss to publish the Dragonlance line with Tracy Hickman. And Kevin said, I don't know, I don't think we're a book publishing company. And Brian said, well, we're not a book publishing company. He goes, I don't care. Gary, what do you think? You're the big fantasy fiction guy. You're the science fiction guy. And Gary said, I think we should go for it. And because of that, 360 novels 360 novels, and over 300 short stories were published out of this little town of 4,000 people in Lake Geneva.
Yeah. So crazy, the numbers there. Wow. Let me pause really quick here. I want to go and acknowledge some things going on in the we got a bunch of questions that I've pinned too. Chris Carlton Webb, thank you for he sent a loot box of 1,000 jewels. I still don't know what jewels are, but thank you so much. Thank you for your support, buddy. Or your second to none, buddy. Thank you so much. I do have a funny thing I want to say. This Blair Blurred, when you were talking about the sandbox, she mentioned, I'm so mad that I missed your sandbox game. I think it was Saturday morning. She says, because I was hungover. She was one of the players that was supposed to be there and didn't show up because, I found out that, she was hungover from the night before.
She missed a great battle.
It was a fun game. Let me see. Demon Dog says Paul is an awesome DM too. By the way, playing D&D and at 330 Center Street with him has been some of my favorite sessions ever. That's awesome, dude. Fugly says Dragon Days sounds like fun. Wish I was available to go. Paul's dungeon game table is legendary. And then we got a question for you. Let me see if I can get to this. God, there's a couple of them here. I'll just start with the last one from Dreg. He says, question for Paul. What is your personal favorite experience and moment in time in Lake Geneva? Who or what moved you more than any other time? That's a great question.
That is a great question. For me, because I run the Legends of Wargaming program at GaryCon, which is basically a miniature version of Gen Con 1973, before Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I bring all of Gary's old buddies in to play and run these games. So I bring Mike Reese, Gary's co-author on Tractics, and he runs Tractics with the original models on the table and talks to people about playing with Gary. And then I've got Dave McGarry running, the original Dungeon board game prototype that he showed to Gary in 1973, and we were playing it in Gary's dining room, and people were playing on that map, the same map that Gary played on when it was first introduced to him. And so you start getting these amazing karmic events where things are happening that connect you to the past. For example, for the 40th anniversary, Yolanda was so gracious. She had us over to the house. I set up my sand table in the basement, and we had a 40th anniversary D&D game, and we also played Chainmail in the basement where the original sand table was. And as Mike Menard, who had last been in that basement as, a 17 or 18-year-old kid, Mike's a really tall guy, and this is a small basement. He walks around the corner, and he hits his head on a pipe, and he immediately goes, oh, that pipe is still there. So here's this guy who's, in his 60s now, and he immediately connects to back being that 16, 17-year-old kid that whacked his head on that same pipe. And then my absolute favorite moment, my absolute favorite moment was Terry Kuntz, who was 18, 19, 20 years old when he first started playing with Gary. We had a shelves set up, man table, and we hadn't had anything on it, but after we had played a big chainmail game, Terry started putting away the Elastilins on the shelf. And he was muttering to himself, the Normans go here, Vikings go down here. He was putting them back like Gary wanted him to be put back, 40 years ago.
That's crazy.
And to me, that sort of karmic goodness of connecting the past to the present. I mean, that's what it's all about. Like you seeing that dragon, that dragon, that was a reproduction, right? But that was exactly what Gary's dragon looked like.
Yeah.
That's what they had. That's what came out on the battlefield at the end of the battle for the Brown Hills. That was the model that Dave Sutherland used, you know?
Yeah.
And so that connection to the past, because I'm an archaeologist, and you know, if you're the first guy to pick up that flint blade, the last person to touch it was a Native American,
Yeah, if you're the first one to pick it up. Yeah, totally.
You're the first one to pick that thing up in thousands of years. And you're instantly connected back to the past. And to me, you know, that's the treasure of doing this whole thing. But I do have one more story that's almost as good as that. So Dave Wesley is getting ready to play in a Tractics game with Mike Reese. Dave Wesley is, of course, the guy who came up with Brownstein, which is the underpinnings for role-playing games. It's the first sort of role-playing shift that happens in his group up in Minnesota. And then Arneson takes it and makes Blackthorn, which is a full-on role-playing game. But in any event, here's Dave Wesley, a legend, right? This guy is responsible for all of this great stuff that we're enjoying because he tipped Arneson that way. Arneson tipped Gary that way. And this is one of the guys. He's just sitting there setting up the Russian side of a spring 1943 battle.
Yeah.
And these two kids come up to me, 11 and 12 years old, brothers. And they go, "Hey, mister, can we play in that tank game over there?" I go, "Oh, yeah. You see that guy in the white shirt? That's Grandpa Dave. Go ask Grandpa Dave if you can play in the game." So these two kids, 11 and 12, come up to Dave. They don't know any idea who he is, right? And they say, "Hey, Grandpa Dave, can we play in this tank game?" And Dave has such a sharp wit, he doesn't miss a beat and just says, "Well, sure, you can go ahead and play because you're about the level of skill of Russian drivers during this time in the campaign because all their other ones had been killed in the initial campaign, so they were only teenagers anyways."
Jesus.
And he goes, "Here, you play this tank, you play this tank." And so that's the sort of the karmic beauty of all of this.
Yeah.
There's better games than Chainmail. There's better games than Tractics, you know, and I struggled to get Mike Reese to use the Tractics rules because he wants to use aces and eights, you know, and I'm like, or, you know, he wants to use the newest type of war game. But there is that connection to the past, that history, that living archaeology or ethno-archaeology, where you do things so that you can learn about the past.
Yeah. God, there's some great comments in here too. DM RX asked what your favorite war game is to play. I feel that's a good segue into, because you just mentioned there's other games. So what is your? I'd like to hear that answer to this question real quick. What's your favorite war game to play? And then I want to talk to you about some other chatter that's been up here regarding fundraising. So I want to talk about that.
Well, absolutely, Chainmail. It's my favorite.
I love it.
Especially using the last ones. But my second favorite would be Little Wars. Every year at GaryCon, we also put on H.G. Wells' Little Wars with the original 1914 4.7-inch naval cannons that are spring-loaded that shoot matchsticks across the table and knock soldiers down. I mean, watching the little kids play that game alongside their dad, who's really laying in and trying to get a good feed, it's so great.
I've seen that at GaryCon before.
Yeah, it's so those two, just because of the accessibility and the ability to get everybody to be immediately understand how to play the game and to get into it and play and learn it. I love those. Chainmail Joust. You know, you saw the joust going on.
Oh yeah, that's a fixture at the Legends of Wargaming. I mean, for sure.
That's a war game, right?
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
one page. It's one single-sided page in the
One
back
page.
of the
Yeah.
mail.
Yep.
And in, I think it was about 2014 or so at GaryCon, I had it all set up, and some kids played it, and then they came back with some friends, and then they went and got other friends.
Yeah.
And I was watching how an entire generation of iPhone, iPad kids were in there, and they were having the time of their lives from age 6 to age 16. And they were doing jousts against each other and doing the coconuts and having such a great time. They sat there for an hour playing that game. And I thought, wow, that's magic, that this forgotten little piece of paper in the back of a book from 1971 that nobody hardly remembers became such a fond, great memory for those kids as they spent a whole afternoon one weekend in Lake Geneva having their own little jousting tournament.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah. So
my favorite war games right there.
That's a great answer. So there's a little bit of back and forth when you were kind of talking about some of the things to get the memorial to fruition. There was a couple things that there was people who were talking about when we were Wizards, and a couple other, some of the history things you've done in the past, and people were like, well, we would love a physical copy of that, and that would be a great fundraiser.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I
wanted to, can you give us a little insight on, to get over that hump, which I know, it's money, it's donations, it's fundraising, it's all that stuff. What's kind of on the agenda, if you even are able to talk about what you have in mind?
The agenda is I have to get the table in.
Yeah.
Right? You can't have a Kickstarter and then try to raise money again for the same thing, right? You got to get it done, right? And so we got the final engineering plans back from our engineers. We did soil testing, engineers. We've sent the engineering plans over to 3 contracting firms. They're all putting bids in on it right now. The stone is being cut and polished down in Georgia at a stone finishing company. I think they're called Keystone.
And you told me this, but this is more for which is, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is we got to get the table built and in.
Yeah.
It'll be the table and the stone platform that they're on, right?
First, right?
None of the bronze is going to get done, because first of all, the bronze is going to take 3 to 4 years for a sculptor to go from 1/72 scale to half scale to full scale styrofoam, clay, and then finally to bronze. There's a lot of process there.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of different bronze artists. One of the bronze artists, he's like one of the top sculptors in the world. And obviously he's going to cost us a lot of money. Not because the bronze is expensive. It's maybe $18,000 worth of bronze.
Yeah.
But because of the artistry, it's going to take him 3 to 4 years of his life to create this thing.
Yeah.
Right? 3 to 4 years of his life. So you can't say, oh, it's $25,000.
Yeah, we'll give you $10. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Nobody's going to accept that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and this guy, he did a map of Korea and Vietnam for the Naval War College. And they're large 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of bronze in low relief. So this guy knows how to make the tabletop map. Most other sculptors I talked to said, well, I'll do the throne and Gary, but I can't do that map thing. It's too much. Yeah. It's too complicated. It's too big.
So just so I understand, and so we all understand, the table is in the works right now to be put down there, and that was the first stage of the Kickstarter that went through, is the table and all that.
Well,
and then
this is how it was. I structured the Kickstarter so that at a minimum we could do the stone elements of the table.
Okay.
Right? That there'd be something there.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to, and the stone we picked is berry granite which is a super high-end stone. It's from Vermont. They use it in a lot of great statuary around the country. It's considered the gold standard for outdoor monuments because it has a very tight grain, is really durable, does not erode, and doesn't chip easily. And so it's really resistant to graffiti and all sorts of stuff. So it's a great stone. So the benches, the table, and all of the pavers around it are going to be of this berry granite.
Awesome.
The edges of the table will be engraved with polyhedral dice in repeating patterns all around the tables and the benches. But that's all you get for $150,000 or so, right?
Yeah.
Because just the bronze map on the tabletop is $200,000, right?
Yeah.
And so I structured the Kickstarter so at a base level, we could get the stone elements done.
Yeah.
And then we could have another Kickstarter.
Foundation, baby.
And so we had stretch goals, like the stretch goal to $350,000 would have got us to the bronze map, but we didn't make it.
Yeah.
But we still fulfilled it, and we're able to get the stone elements in. And so that was the plan all along. Was, I wish in my heart of hearts. I mean, when I did that video, I was pitching to the 50 million people who played this game in their life. I was pitching to the people whose lives were changed by this game, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, if I tell people, if this game has created lifelong friends for you, this game has saved your life, if this game has made your life better, if you have your career because of this game, if this game helped you to find the love of your life, if this means something to you because of this, and you want a chance to say thanks, here's your chance. Give me $50 to build this memorial to Gary, and then it's yours forever. It's gamers forever around the world.
Yeah.
I don't own it. Nobody owns it. It just belongs to the world. It belongs to all gamers and can be this great mecca for people to visit to honor the birthplace of Dungeons & Dragons there in Lake Geneva. And so I was hoping that there would be this kind of outpouring of, I played that game in high school. It was so great. Here's $15, right? But I only got $215,000.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of talked about this. A Kickstarter makes a lot of money because people get something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We had this conversation. Yeah.
They get a book or something, right? So they're not just donating their money for something that everyone
receiving something back. Yeah.
And they're buying something, right?
Yeah.
So this Kickstarter was a little unusual because you weren't buying anything. You could get a brick with your name engraved on it, but it was going to be part of the memorial. You didn't get it. And you didn't really get anything physical out of this. You didn't purchase anything physical. There was a few little awards that I put in there, like a PDF of an adventure that, should be done here in August. But there was nothing physical. And so I think a lot of people just thought, well, why do I need to give money if this thing is going to exist? I'll just go to it when it's done.
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a rude awakening for me because, I'm a pretty motivated, positive sort of guy. And so I thought maybe there'll just be this big outswelling of love for Dungeons and Dragons, and people will come through for it, and we'll be able to do the whole thing. But as it is, it's had a long history. It's had its ups and downs. The whole memorial has. There's been controversy. Why has it taken so long? That sort of thing. And I kind of explained why it's taken so long. But we're here now, right? We're right here. But having the table in there, that's going to be the proof. This is going to be something. Whether you want it to be this thing with the statue of Gary with his hand pointed down to the bronze map so everybody can game around it, or whether it's just going to be a stone table, that's up to the fans at this point. So the idea is that we get the stone elements in, and then we'll have a subsequent fundraiser to raise money, maybe with the base being to afford the bronze map, and then just kind of work our way through it.
So in stages kind of thing. In
Right.
stages, yeah. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. But the first goal right now is to get the bench out there, which it's in the works.
Well, the table and the benches, so people
Yeah.
can sit at that table and play D&D on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super awesome. Wow,
So, yeah,
you guys.
It's been a long journey though, because COVID was right in the middle of all of it, and they just they stopped having city council meetings, and they stopped. I couldn't see the mayor anymore, and it basically put the brakes on the project for 2 years.
Yeah, man. Well, it's gonna happen.
You dang right it's going to happen, because I'm in charge of it.
Wow, you know,
I don't believe in unwinnable scenarios.
yeah. So, well, so that, you know, and I think, you know, we'll have you back to talk more about, you know, when it kind of is time to pump up the volume. I don't know. I don't even know if people can still donate again. Is there a link that this is ongoing?
The Kickstarter is still open. Kickstarter for the Gary Gygax Memorial Gaming Table is still open. You can get a brick with your group's name engraved on it, or your brother who taught you how to play D&D. You could get his name engraved on it, or your high school buddy who taught you to play D&D who's passed away. You can memorialize them. There's all sorts of stuff like that people have engraved on the pavers that make up the base to the memorial. I mean, it's going to be permanent. You'll be part of this memorial, forever. I have guys who put their character names of their 3 characters in their D&D group in high school, and
yeah.
I think that in the next level of fundraising, to encourage people who've already donated and who already have a brick, I'm thinking about having bricks dedicated to favorite people in the RPG industry. Like Janelle Jaquay, who passed away a couple years back, or Gene Raby, or Dave Arneson. Somebody asked, do you think one day we could have Dave Arneson there? I was like, you know how hard it's been to get Gary Gygax in his home? I can't imagine. By the way, we'd also like to put this other guy on the other end who isn't from Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
But the other end of the table, Angelo, is open, and it's handicap accessible, so that anybody with mobility issues can come off the main sidewalk straight up to the end of the table and play. Because, Gary's father had broken his hip skating on the ice in Lake Geneva in Switzerland, is where he had broken his hip. And his father had to have special orthotic shoes in order to walk regularly, because one leg was so much shorter than the other because of his broken hip. Wow. And so Ernie told me this story, and he said, when my dad was cobbling shoes, even though we were dirt poor, my dad would never charge extra for all the extra work that he put into to make orthotic shoes, because he always thought of his father having that disability and didn't want people to be burdened with that. So Gary always thought about people with disabilities and giving them a chance to be on, literally equal footing with everybody else. And so that's our whole theme for this table, is a seat for everybody at the table.
Yeah. In the chat, you guys, there was a couple questions about if Paul has a channel on YouTube. I did just put that in there. It's Paul Stormberg 1077. He's got some really cool history stuff in there and some other things too. So go on there and subscribe.
I also have a Legends of Wargaming channel on there too.
You do,
and that has some history. It's just Legends of Wargaming. It's just one of my channels.
Oh, yeah, on your channel, yeah. So I put the link in here for you guys to go down there and find him. I also put the link into the Kickstarter for the Gygax Memorial Game Table for Dungeons and Dragons. I did put that in there. And I'll put it in the show notes too, so you guys can go and check it out if you haven't yet. But yeah, at the bare minimum, go check out those links, guys, and also go subscribe to his YouTube channel where he's got some really cool stuff in there. So yeah.
On my Legends of Wargaming channel, I have a chainmail history video, and I have a Wizard of Lake Geneva video, and I got a couple history videos on there that I put up.
Yeah, I'm going to get that link too.
It's a separate channel.
And here it is. I found it. And I am now subscribed to it, which I subscribed to your other one and checked out. So you had some great videos on the Paul Stormberg one, but this one too, guys. And I'm putting this in there also. Joe Kaufman says, Paul, do you have a copy of Stratego?
Strategos, yes. Totten Strategos is, I assume, what he means. That's the Civil War rules, Kriegspiel rules that were written by Charles Totten. And that was the set of rules that Wesley used to come up with the concept of the neutral referee creating a scenario for the players to play into.
Got it.
And that's also how they found their fellow group members. They looked at the library checkout card and looked at the names of the people listed on the card, and then looked them up in the local phone book and called them up and asked them if they wanted to join their wargaming group.
Wow. Sort
of a classified ads there.
Yeah. I mean, there was no internet, so definitely. So there's a kind of switching gears a little bit. There's a lot of questions in here regarding, I'll read the last one that came in. Let me see here. Let me go to my pinned comments. Joe Kaufman says, Paul, I got to know more about your Castle Greyhawk project. Are we saving that for the next episode, or do you want to briefly touch on that, or do you want to go to, or I'd like to hear a little bit about, there's a big announcement or a big post from Rob. I wanted to kind of hear your opinion on what
I think we should cover the Greyhawk Castle stuff separately, but
okay, Greyhawk episode for us. You got it, buddy.
I'll give you a little preview in that I've been working with Gary's widow and have had the collection and have had pieces of the castle, and the castle has never been all together since the 1970s.
Yeah.
There's two castles. There's the first castle, which was created in 73, and the second castle, which was created in 74, which is a combination of Rob's castle and Gary's. But anyways, just about a month and a half ago, I found the final map to go with the final key to finally put all 98 levels of the two castles together for the first time in probably 40 or 50 years. So yeah.
I mean,
that's what we'll talk about, is the structure of the two castles and what's in there and what Rob created, what Gary created. That's cool.
Yeah, and that's massive. That is absolutely massive. So what do you know about what Rob announced with because you know him, you know what's
well, so like I said, when I was running the collector's trove, I eventually Rob approached me and I sold some of Rob's materials. I sold his level of Greyhawk Castle called Bottle City, and then Rob took the funds generated from that and eventually published one of his first levels of Greyhawk Castle ever to be published. And so as he and I were working through his materials, I scanned everything that I sold for him because he wasn't going to sell it unless he had his material scanned, because eventually he wanted to publish these things.
Sure.
So we were selling like the original manuscript for Bottle City. It sold for, I don't know, $3,600 at the time in 2005, which today I think would be $8,000 to $10,000,
Yeah.
right? Because of inflation. But eventually we came on this idea of taking all of the scans and putting them together in sort of an encyclopedic archive of all of his works, indexed, hot linked, complete information. You can go to the index and click on Otto, and you can find every bit of information about Otto that's in those original archive documents, timelines, all sorts of incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And that's called the El Rajake Archive. And Rob's castle back in the day, you know, because Gary had the first castle, Greyhawk Castle. Everybody played in that. That was test plays. But Gary wanted to play the game, and he couldn't very well play in Greyhawk Castle, his creation. So Rob created Castle El Rajake, or ERK, which is supposed to be Rob's initials, essentially, right?
Yeah.
RJK, right? El Rajake. And so El Rajake became the castle that Mordenkainen eventually, and Irad. So Mordenkainen is not actually a Greyhawk character. Mordenkainen is a character in Rob's world, which he called Calibroon. So Mordenkainen and Big B and all of those Circle of 8 characters that Gary had, E-Rag and all that, those are all in Rob's campaign world. They're Rob's. They're not Greyhawk characters at all. But in a literary fashion, Gary made them part of Greyhawk. Kind of like Rob took certain levels of his castle that he ran Gary through, and they got imported into that second version of Greyhawk Castle.
Sure.
And so anyways, but Gary played through all of Rob's El Rajake, 13 levels, and some pretty epic levels in there. And a lot of those levels got transported into the second castle. But that's on the El Rajake archive as well. And so basically the El Rajake archive is this sort of treasure trove, this Dead Sea Scrolls collection of scans that you can go in and actually see the creation of D&D through Rob's eyes as a 16, 17-year-old kid. Actually, he was 13 or 14 when he first met Gary. So you start to see his letters to Arneson, and you see it's an incredible experience to go through it, and it's designed like a web browser, right? So it's like going to an HTML website that is a hyperlinked, indexed, with
almost,
images, right? And so I didn't know how to program anything. So I thought, well, I know HTML. And if I just created it like a website, I could put it on a DVD and we could sell the DVD, and people could just use their browser to go through the DVD and interact with it. It works amazingly.
Wow.
We also have a USB version of it as well. And so if you really want to be able to see the original documents, the original pieces of Greyhawk Castle, the original pieces of El Rajake, the original pieces of, he even has the original write-up, Dave Arneson's original write-up of Mordenkainen and Robilar's adventure into the City of Gods in Blackmore, right? And so it's an incredible resource. And Rob and I came together and made that as a product so that people could see all that stuff. But the idea was the impetus of that would allow him to publish further projects down the road and find out what people were interested in. Yeah. So, you know that if there's anybody left alive who can bring Greyhawk Castle to life, it's only Rob. Because everybody else that's alive they were just players in it, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Gary's notes, they're just one-line entries, right? And so you can't make that like the castle the players went through unless you get the player's perspective. So the only way to really bring the true Greyhawk Castle to life, I think, is to get the stories of the players and to have Rob Kuntz write a Bible for the whole castle, because he was Gary's co-DM for that for 3 or 4 years. And over they tried to publish it as a team, but either Gary's companies kicked him out, his companies failed, or Rob and Gary had a falling out, or there was always something that just kept that Greyhawk Castle carrot too far away from us. So Rob was brought on by Gary to be the main Greyhawk guy in the early 80s. And that's what it was going to be. In about 1982, it was going to be Rob being kind of the content creator for Greyhawk. And Rob knew how Gary played, and Gary knew how Rob played, and they were a team. When they DM'd together, sometimes they DM'd together and sometimes apart, but they kept running the same campaign, just 2 DMs for the same campaign.
Yeah.
So Rob is clearly seeing what's going to come out of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, which I think is great. Luke, you can't deny that Luke was part of that. He played in all those adventures. He played in Greyhawk Castle. He played Tomb of Horrors. He went through the Giant series. He went through the Temple of Elemental Evil. He played in everything that Gary created, just like Rob. But Rob was a game designer at the time, was Gary's co-author, co-designer, confidant, everything else. And so if you want, I think Rob feels, and, I think he's correct, that if you want the true vision of what Greyhawk should be, Rob is the heir apparent to that. And so I think Rob has every right to publish what he thinks the system should be. And Luke has every right to publish what he thinks the system should be.
Yeah.
Right?
But who has the original documents?
Well, the original castle is still held by the estate.
Yeah.
And of course, some of those levels belong to Rob Kuntz.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is like a project car that Gary and Rob had been working on for years. They were buddies, right? Gary put in the engine. Rob put mag wheels on it and a cool set of exhaust pipes. Gary found red upholstered seats.
Yeah.
Rob found some cool fuzzy dice for it. But then Rob moved away and Gary just parked it in the garage. And it sat in that garage for years.
Yeah.
Well, now everybody's looking at selling that, quote unquote, selling that car, right?
Yeah.
But part of it is Rob's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So it'd be like a book where Rob wrote 30% of the chapters and Gary wrote 60% of the chapters. Could you take Rob's chapters out and just create your book without those chapters? Probably, but it still wouldn't be the true thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, for years, that's been the struggle. Everybody has wanted the original castle. I don't think that people realized that there were 2 castles.
Yeah.
Right? So, but Rob has all those other adventures that he ran with Gary in Greyhawk for the players in their campaign. Rob has all those documents. A lot of them are on the El Rajate archive.
Yeah.
But, like I said, a one-line sentence does not capture what Jim Ward did there, right? Or what Ernie's character Iraq did there.
Yeah.
Rob knows what happened there. And he can retell that story because Rob has memories of doing that. He was running the game for them.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to recreate that stuff and kind of resurrect it or kind of reconstitute it out of their game notes, it's got to be Rob.
Yeah. Well, I sure hope that you see all these kind of side projects and people saying that they have, this company has this and this has this.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's and you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm very interested because what was really written by Gary is what I'm really interested in, not somebody's interpretation of it. You know what I mean?
But you're not going to get it now, Angelo.
Yeah.
He's gone. You're going to get a pile of rubbish in the corner, 6 centipedes.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're going to get. But what you would get if you heard Gary tell it, he would say, that's the first encounter that Elisa and Ernie had when I was running it for them. And they were so scared of the centipedes because we had large centipedes that would always fall down on the tables in the basement. And Elisa was terrified of centipedes. And yet they fought through it and they found, Ernie says, I remember that there was, he said, I don't remember what the first treasure was, but it was probably copper pieces. You know what it was? It was gems. It was a cache of gems worth 1 to 600 gold pieces each. And so it was actually worth a couple thousand gold pieces of treasure right there. That was the first. But you see, all that has to be put together by me knowing Ernie's tale of it, seeing the actual manuscript, knowing that Elisa was afraid of the giant centipedes that fell down in the basement. And so that's how it lives. It can't be, we can have Joe Schmo look at this and say, well, the line says there's a nest of 4 centipedes here.
Yeah.
You lose all of that.
Yeah.
And so Gary's 90% of Gary's dungeon lived in his mind because he had such a fantastic grasp of fantasy fiction and science fiction. He could pull up a Vance word to describe some horrible monster. A fuliginous stain across its back, and you're like, what does that mean? I don't know. But Gary had this whole world of words from all the fantasy authors he added and all the scenarios and how the fighting happened and the desperate climbing up the cliff face. And he put that into his game. It wasn't on the paper. It was in his words and it was in the player's minds. Yeah. And so you can't get that because Gary's gone. But the closest you could get to it
would be Rob. Yeah.
Be Rob. But shamefully, I don't think Rob is going to get a shot. And, I don't know what I can say about that, but I've tried for years to get Rob a shot at it. And, he and Gary have tried for years to get a shot at it, but it's just never happened. But that's, I think the original level should be printed in a coffee table style book with high-res scans of the original keys and maps. And then there should be sidebar commentary by Rob and stories told by the players of their adventures on this level. And then that would make the whole thing come to life.
And that'd be more of a history piece almost than.
But you could run it.
But you could run it, yeah.
Because you could, you could say, well, this is the room where they were so terrified when the centipedes came out because I described them like this, and
it gives more.
Like Gary writes in one of the old Wargame magazines, he says, a dark, brooding castle shadow hangs over the rock-boned prominence that juts up from the marsh. And he describes what it is like to walk up to Greyhawk Castle. You have his words. They're just in an article that you have to dig up and put in there with it. And you could read Gary's words saying, this is how Gary described the approach to the castle, right? Yeah. So it can't just be some guy going, well, I'm going to say the castle is blah, 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 and write it up. That's not the living castle.
Yeah.
So
A
I
lot
think it
more,
would be
lot more
an
to it
amazing
than
project.
what's that?
I think it would be an amazing project
Yeah.
to bring all those players' stories of living the game, Gary's stories, Rob's stories, putting it all together so that it's kind of like a living history thing, right? You know, you're playing the dungeon, but you see the sidebar. This is where your ex-cousin was trapped forever. So
Yeah.
you could have your ex-cousin's body lying there in the room, you know, and
Yeah. Wow.
so we got on the cast of Greyhawk. How did we do that? Oh, yes, because Rob is really the only one who can represent uh, kind of the full spectrum of Gary's um, design vision of where Greyhawk would go. I mean, Luke's going to do great, and
And we're all
he played through it. He heard his dad's word. His dad described how terrifying Tomb of Horrors was, right? You know,
yeah.
and he lived through that stuff. Now Rob was older at the time, right? And Rob was seeing things behind the scenes too, and so you know they should both work on
Yeah.
it. That's what it should
Yeah.
be. They should both work on it. But I think that Rob is going to publish some stuff that will go great with early Greyhawk stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I respect his place in that setting. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and you got the cover art that he drew.
What was that?
The cover art that they showed, the mock-up of the cover art.
Yeah, I saw it today. Let me see if I can grab it again from somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I like the stuff that I mean, you know,
So that's Robilar and Zugatmore. That's
yeah,
when Robilar meets Zugatmore. That's the image.
yeah. I wish I mean, if I could find it, I'll bring it up in front of us, but I don't see it. Shoot.
A lot of red tape.
Let me see if I can find that.
Good night, John Williams.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'll put this on here too. I'm going to put this link here for TLB Games also, guys. Let me see if I can get this in here. TLBgames.com. See if you guys can see this too. This is referencing what Paul was talking about. Go check that out, guys. Well, Paul, we're at the 2-hour mark. I think we covered some good stuff. I definitely want to do a part 2 with you and get into, you know, we still didn't even cover like any of the audio projects and film projects and stuff like that. So, God, that's a whole nother episode, I feel like. And then Greyhawk too. I mean, Greyhawk, we got to do an episode on Greyhawk. So, I think that was one of the things I asked you when I saw you. It was like, do you remember the Paul Stormberg maps that you had on Dragon's Foot back in the day from Village of HOMMLET? And you're like, oh man, the scans are horrible. So I'm like, do you have the originals? Because I would love to get a good scan of those. But
I do. I have.
Because I remember
right behind.
You have them behind you.
Yeah, they're right here.
Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, there's two of them.
There are two. One was the DM map, and the other one was the.
So this is the DM map there.
Oh my God, you do have it, dude! Holy crap!
And see, I even went so far as to put the little post-it note of the temple on there. See
yes, I know you did.
Right, and
so
then
you did a. It's actually a picture that you taped it over.
Yeah, I scaled it. I scaled it so that
I know.
Yeah. And then let's see, where's the moat house? Moat house is around here. Oh, there's the moat house. Look how tiny the moat house is. Let's see. Moat house.
Yeah, the moat house would be a lot smaller.
that's the moat house. Let's see, where is it?
Yeah, you have to move it to the side a little bit. Oh yeah, there it is. Yep, there it is. Yeah, lift it a little bit. Yep,
See,
there's
that's
the moat
how
house.
tiny the moat house is.
Oh my god, I love it. Yeah, I used this map for my campaign. It's so crazy. Yeah. Oh my god.
Great. And then there's the full color one too.
Yeah, and that's the player's map, I think, right?
Yeah, this is the player's map.
Yeah. When did you actually run this? This had to have been years ago, right?
Oh yeah, it was probably 10 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Been on the internet for a while.
Yeah. I think that was I think it was on Dragon's Foot, right? It had to have been Dragon's Foot where I found it first, maybe 10 years ago or something like that. I don't even remember.
You know, somebody asked a question the other day and they said I can't for the life of me find a definitive map of the Battle of Emerald Meadows. Right?
Yes.
And I had also done a whole series of maps on the Battle of Emerald Meadows showing the troop movements, right?
Oh, I bet you did.
And there's 3 maps, so it's almost like a little animation, so you can see the evil troops moving into
like a flip book. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I said, well, I based these on the write-ups in the World of Greyhawk, plus I have actually seen Gary's actual map of Nulb and Emerald Meadow to the northwest of Nulb, so I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And somebody said, is there an official version?
Yeah.
I was like, you mean not Gary's version and official version?
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, because he placed it just west of the Temple of Elemental Evil in the valley right there, right?
It's northwest of Null. That's where it is.
Northwest of Null. Okay.
So
more
on his original map, this isn't a good example. Never demonstrated. But this little section right
there you go. There's
here,
Emerald Meadows. Yep, you mapped it. That's right.
I mean that's what it is. And you see where the Velverdiva River is there?
I do, yeah.
And you see how there's a little bend there that's the pocket that they get trapped in.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, oh my god.
And then Nulb is down
right
there. You see it?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
right there.
This is Gary's campaign map. Right here, this corner is drawn from Gary's campaign map right there.
Really?
And that's how I know it's accurate. Because it's Gary. Although I'm sure there's an official version out there somewhere.
Oh, I don't think so.
No, that's a joke.
Wow.
We don't need Gary. We need the official version. So somebody said, I think it was published in Dragon Magazine, Dungeon Magazine, something.
I actually don't think it was. I think it was more.
Yeah, somebody said it was published in Dungeon Magazine 221 or Dragon Magazine 221.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't recall, but man, that's a good homework for me. 221, you said 221.
Yeah. But somebody took my map and did a professional drawing of it.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, we're gonna let's close shop. I first of all, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting, and I look forward to. I'm gonna throw it out there many more times. And is there anything that any parting kind of words you want to say or kind of leave us with? Or, by the way, thank you so much for coming on. I mean. I really, this has been awesome. It's been super cool to dive into. This history, man. It's so, we all love it. So I personally do. So,
well, it's like you said. You like focusing on Gary's legacy. Everything I do, everything I talk about is Gary's legacy. So, So Gary's legacy is, I think that, like I said in the Kickstarter video. Man, he gave us a great gift.
Yeah.
A great gift. A lifetime gift. This isn't This isn't a cool RC toy that breaks after a couple weeks and you remember it fondly as a kid. This is something that you enjoy, all your friends enjoy, you share with your children and your children's children, and it's just a lifetime gift. It's an amazing thing that Gary has given us, and I just, everything I do, whether I'm, my wife wishes I'd make more money doing this stuff, but my payment is that good karma from thanking Gary for the great gift he gave us.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a great place to leave this. Joe Coffin says Paul is a paladin of gygax. Have you ever done one of those the gygax approved alignment test?
No.
Oh my God, I'm gonna send you the link. I'd be interested to hear what you come up with. It's only 10 questions. And
hey, if you donate $50,000 or more to the memorial, you too can be a paladin of gygax.
I love
That's one of the levels, baby.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah, you can be a lord of gygax. We've got a couple lords of gygax, and we've got one paladin of gygax. One guy who just couldn't believe people weren't donating enough money, and so he donated $50,000 to the memorial.
Wow.
And I thank him every day because we were kind of on the ropes, and he really came in and injected some positivity into the whole thing. So when we had our little ceremony in March, where we did the groundbreaking because we had to do soil testing, we had a knighting ceremony, and Heidi and Gail and Alex Gygax all held the sword and knighted him as a paladin of gygax for supporting Gary's legacy. So yeah. So we need some more paladins of gygax out there, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You got the hero of gygax. You got epic hero of gygax. Yeah, dude, it's champion.
Yeah, so the epic stones are 12-inch stones, so you can get more text. And then the regular stones are 8-inch stones. And the higher the level is, the closer you are to Gary. Like paladins of gygax are on the bronze scroll on the back of the throne.
Oh, wow.
And then lords of gygax are at the base of the throne below the throne. And they're large stones. So, yeah.
Guardians of warriors, 8th level adventurers. Yeah.
Yeah, so everything 9th level or name level and above is a stone. Everything below that is just a level.
Yeah. Huh. All right, folks. Well, thank you. Thank you, Paul, for coming on. We'll keep in touch. What's next for you out of cons? What do you? I know you. We talked about where the ones that you are able to make it to, and now ACON is being moved to November, which is interesting. It's going to be fun next year.
That's great.
What's next for you? Where can people see you?
Dragon Days.
Dragon Days in October, which I need to make it out for that.
I'll have the history of D&D display at Horticultural Hall. There'll be all kinds of gaming there. We're going to have 3 days of gaming there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can play Fight in the Skies with Mike Carr, great old school World War I aerial combat game that's been played at Horticulture, was played at the very first Gen Con at Horticultural Hall. You can play chainmail. You can learn to play. I had one guy who sat down and played D&D for the first time with his wife and his children. They had never played with him before. But we had this introductory D&D game where everybody sat down, had character sheets, got a set of dice, and they ran through a basic adventure, and they all got to play together. And he came up and he said, I just have to thank you, Paul, because for 30 years I've been playing this game with my friends, and I've never played with my family before. The first time I got to play with my wife and my kids. And now we play every Sunday afternoon together. So that's what it's all about, building.
That is what it's all about. That's super awesome. Dragon Days in October, right? It's like, what is
The
it?
3rd and the
October?
4th. It's October 3rd and 4th from 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. The Horticultural Hall Gaming is open. It's $20 for the weekend. And you can get into the museum for free to see the exhibit. It's normally $12 to get into the museum. And you can get into 330 Center Street, the birthplace of D&D, get a tour of that. You can go to the library, check out the Appendix N. You can go to the theater, watch some D&D cartoons or the Dungeons & Dragons movie as a matinee. And you can go to Horticultural Hall and game. Get things signed by Jeff Easley and Tony Sudlow and Steve Sullivan, and all those guys will be there.
I got to make it to Dragon Days one of these times.
Yeah. And you know what? We had 1,300 adults, paid adults last year. We had 400 children 12 and under at this festival, learning about D&D, rolling dice, going on a hay bale dungeon maze to play D&D with foam swords and flip over cards that say you found a trap and that sort of thing. Yeah. We have an adventurer's proving ground for the kids. We have a citywide adventure where you have to go around and solve riddles and clues around the city. And you bring them back, and every place you go to, you get 100 XP stamp. So every place you go to, you get 100 XP. And at the end, you take your adventurer sheet, you turn it in to the Ye Olde Magic Shop, and you cash in your experience points for prizes, like magic wands and swords and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember you were
great event.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out for sure. Yeah. All right, well, Paul, we're gonna you guys, everybody, thank you for all the questions, and I know I missed a whole boatload of them, but
we'll be on again.
We'll do it again, and you guys can pummel in with the questions again. Yeah, somebody asked, what's the encumbrance on Man-at-Arms thing? Yeah, Paul, thanks so much. You guys, we're gonna sign off. A little shameless plug for the channel here. My collab video tomorrow on the Cleric is coming out. I'm really excited about it because I had a lot of fun doing it. That's coming out tomorrow, so make sure you check that out. You guys, in the show notes, I'm going to put links to all of Paul's links, and he's got a whole bunch of them because Paul does so much stuff. So be sure to, if you're rewatching this, go into the show notes and look at the Gary the Memorial Fund, look at the Collector's Trove. I put links on his YouTube channels, both of them. And yeah, so we're gonna stay tuned. We'll wrangle him back in here and do a deep dive on some Greyhawk soon. And there's other stuff too we're gonna talk about. But all right, you guys. Well, we're gonna get out of here. Paul, thank you again. I appreciate it. And
thanks, everybody.
You guys all take care. Take care of each other. Game on. And until the next time.